We've all seen it before, the typical webinar setup. A desk with an expert behind that desk in front of a simple background with usually a microphone or a laptop on that desk. That's it. Don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this webinar format. It has proved itself to be effective for certain subjects. However, this format is not the only webinar format. Today, we're talking about unconventional ways to use a webinar. Video podcast, talk show, fireside chats. We love video podcasts here at WebinarGeek. In fact, we host our own video podcast called Geek Talk. Check out the latest episode about professional studios in the description below. But did you know that a webinar can be an ideal substitute for the video recording of your podcast? And not just your video podcast. You can easily host fireside chats and talk shows with a webinar. You can have your guest speakers in the same room as you. This creates a great dynamic, but you can also invite your guests as co-presenters to your webinars. In fact, we hosted a fireside chat with Neil Patel before, who was on the other side of the world, but still in the same webinar room with us. If you want to make your podcast, talk show or fireside chat more interactive, make sure you give the attendees the opportunity to ask questions during the webinar. Short-form webinars. Most of us are familiar with 30 to 60-minute webinars. In fact, one question we get asked oh so often is what is the best duration for our webinar? And the answer is always the same. A minimum of 30 minutes and a maximum of 60 minutes. However, we see a lot more webinars pop up with a duration of fewer than 30 minutes. Instead of hosting one webinar a month of an hour, you can host multiple webinars during the week with a shorter time frame. It's easier for someone to commit to a webinar of 15 minutes than it is for someone to view a webinar of an hour. Quiz shows. We love these. It has become a bit of an end-of-the-year tradition for us to host a pub quiz in a webinar. In 2020, we used to host one of these every single month because we couldn't host the Friday afternoon drinks in person. Hosting a pub quiz or a quiz show is incredibly easy and fun. All you need is a bunch of questions. Google is your best friend in this case. And you need webinar software that allows you to add quizzes to the webinar. With WebinarGeek, we also have the option to create assessments. This adds another layer to the quiz show. You can add how many quizzes need to be answered correctly for someone to pass the assessment. Get yourself a host that knows how to entertain a crowd and you've got yourself a quiz show. Maybe even add in some prizes for the attendees. Handson Workshops. Another way to create an interactive webinar is to host a hands-on workshop. These types of webinars are great for content creation or software, for example. Let's say you have a new feature of your app that is launching soon. You can host a webinar that explains the new feature in detail. While you're explaining, you can invite your audience to follow along in their own account and figure out this new feature live. It's an excellent opportunity for them to ask questions and to learn more about your product. Q&As or Ask Me Anything. Another format we like to host in a webinar is a Q&A session or an Ask Me Anything webinar. These are great. It gives your audience the opportunity to ask questions live and get immediate responses. But it also takes almost no time to prepare beforehand. All you have to do is collect questions from your audience. This can be done before the start of the webinar by asking them to add a question to the registration. Or you can just wing it and wait for the questions to come in during the live webinar. Q&As are also a great way to build trust with your audience. Because the webinar is so low-key, it feels just like a group of friends discussing different topics. And that's all the types of unconventional webinars. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about webinars, how to host them, what gear to use, and what it is like to work at a tech startup, please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click like on this video and hit that notification bell and let us know, which webinar type are you going to try next? Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you on the next one.